I'm Ben Durham, and this is Erik.
I'm one of the co-founders and engineers at Redshift Sports.
For some context before we get going, this video was actually filmed last year at the beginning of 2023, and it all happened because I was reviewing Redshift's newest ArcLight Pro pedals for their launch event. Before this, there were just the ArcLight City pedals. Both are stellar pieces of gear, but serve different markets and demographics. Now you know what's what when we're talking about that during the interview. Anyway, I like to know more about the things that I review on this channel, so I asked my contact at Redshift if I'd be able to talk with a founder or an engineer who knew more about the intricacies of the pedals, and ended up chatting with Erik for an hour or so. I used a few minutes of this particular interview in the actual ArcLight Pro review video itself, but I wanted to get this whole long video out there just for those of you who may want to listen in. There's some really great stuff in here, like this snippet.
And like I said, e-bikes do that better. They're unabashedly, what they are, right? And they come in all different shapes and sizes. And I think that's kind of a nice thing because it's upending a little bit of that like race-focused culture within the industry. And I think people are maybe allowed to design in a different way. It doesn't have to meet the standards of a Tour Pro all of a sudden. And I think we've never felt with the need to match that. We've had pros that have asked us to ride our stuff, and that's fine, but we never designed it for pros to start with.
All right, now with that little intro out of the way, let's dive right into this interview. Enjoy! Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name's Erik de Brun. I'm one of the co-founders and engineers at Redshift Sports, and we make all kinds of interesting, innovative cycling components. That's really our mission, and I'd say in general, we like to look at components and solve problems that maybe some of the bigger brands or the cycling industry in general, doesn't focus on. So we often focus on, comfort or safety. And obviously what comes with some of those things, is performance improvements. But we look at things that maybe are being ignored, or problems that are, more geared towards problems that amateurs have, and maybe not so much problems that pros or people doing races might have. And so we have a full line of products that range everything from very safety oriented commuter focused e-bike type stuff all the way to performance enhancing equipment for people doing triathlon or racing gravel or things like that.
Are the clipless and the flat pedals, there's a page on the clipless webpage that shows all the different modularity of it. You can take off the flaps, the different things. And the coolest one I saw was you could have half flat and half clipless, which is kind of cool. Is that feature found elsewhere, or?
Yeah, I don't know how many pedals you can find that allow you to do both dual-sided and single-sided clipless. So we may be unique from that standpoint, at least like a user setup. You can buy single-sided clipless pedals, and a lot of them will come with a single side and nothing on the other side, pins or something. But we wanted to make the pedals as transformable as possible, because I think we recognize too that a lot of people use, a single bike to do a lot of different things. So you may have one bike that you're commuting with, one bike that you're running to the store with, one bike that you go out on the weekends with, and that you race, and maybe you change some things on the bike. And so ultimately we wanted to have, these performance versions of the ArcLights. We wanted them to, not only deliver, say, a dual-sided clipless for someone who's riding on the road, but also maybe a single-sided clipless for someone who's commuting and sometimes they don't have their clipless shoes with them. Or someone could take that and go fully flat with it if they need it to, to use for a period of time. And then, like you mentioned, the wings on the pedals are removable. So what's really cool is that if you have the clipless pedal, you can actually break it all the way down to something that's very similar to what a standard dual-sided clipless would be. And you've got your lightest weight version, so you could feel comfortable taking that in a race or in a ride where you don't want the lights. And the swap is really easy. It doesn't take a long time to do that. So, we think that a number of people will be able to take advantage of that. And, they know that it's always there. You don't have to actually take your pedals off, find another set. Maybe you don't have another set. So you can have one set that gives you the full range of activities you might want to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I didn't quite look into all of that. I guess I did. I tried to hunt around for that, but that was like a great explanation. So thanks for that. Okay, back to the list of questions. So aside from what you just mentioned and focusing more on the flat ones, because that's the pair that I have. What makes the ArcLight Pro flat pedals so amazing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that's really nice about them. So we released the ArcLight City pedals, a little while ago, and I think that everybody recognized that this was this incredible safety upgrade, and it was really great thing for commuters. Great for riding on e-bikes and around the city and things like that. But it was designed with that in mind. So, the grip that's on the ArcLight City pedals is kind of like we call them little teeth. And they're designed to, if you bump into the pedals, you're not going to cut your pants or damage your shins. And so they have really good grip, for almost every kind of shoe. But there's a lot of people out there riding that like a lot of grip, and they want to be able to use these pedals on a bike where they're maybe going on a little bit of a trail or doing something where they need that additional grip, or maybe it rains all the time and they just need to have the best grip they can have. So that was a request, and that's the number one thing I think on the flat pedals that's kind of the big deal is we have mountain bike style traction pins. That are removable, so you can change them out, if they wear down after a couple of years of use. And the other big piece is that these are performance, level pedals. So they've got, triple seal bearings. They've got, an axle, chromoly axle like you find in really high-end mountain bike type of stuff. And ultimately they're rebuildable. So someone that's comfortable rebuilding their pedals, they can do that with these. That's not something you get at, sort of a normal level of pedal. This is definitely going into that performance level. And so we wanted to design it to really stand up to what you might do if you were going to say ride it on your mountain bike on trails. Even though that may not be the most practical thing, you can go ahead and do that and not worry about it.
So I wouldn't call it over-engineered, but engineered very well.
Yeah, and I might say sort of like engineered to the level that you'd expect from a performance pedal. So I think someone that's used to riding that kind of pedal, they're going to notice that it, the way that it spins, the way that it feels, the way that it holds up, all those things are in line with what you'd expect from a high-end pedal.
That's awesome. And so on to the next. So what are your favorite features? And I guess that goes with the whole Pro line, so both the clipless and flat. But in your riding, what are your favorite features?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the way I do a lot of riding on the road to get to gravel trails with my gravel bike. That's kind of the main bike that I ride, besides just a city commuter bike that I use to I do like drop off for my kids. And so, on my e-bike, I like to run the city pedals, but on the gravel bike, I like to run the Pro pedals. And so I'll run both dual-sided clipless or single-sided, depending on if I want to be able to just grab the bike and use regular shoes. So I think the transformability is the feature that I like the most, actually, that it takes just a couple minutes for me to configure something differently. And then if I do go ride where maybe I'm driving somewhere to actually get to a trail system where I don't need the lights, I will pull the wings off and I'll just run it as a regular dual-sided clipless with no lights on it. So I think it's this ability to have it do everything that you want out of the ArcLight side of things in terms of the safety, enhancements, but then not compromise on just having a regular pedal when I want a regular pedal.
And when do you find, on the safety side of things, when do you find that you turn the lights on? So like at sunset, do you ride with them during the day, at night, etc.? Yeah,
so I ride with the lights on all the time that I'm on the road. And honestly, I forget to turn them off on the trail sometimes. I don't really care. But so I'm lighting myself up if people will encounter me on the trail, which can be actually helpful sometimes. But we recommend people run the lights all the time. It's been shown that daytime running lights really, really increase the visibility of cyclists. And there's different light conditions during the day. In a city, there's different light conditions based on what buildings you're riding next to. So I run the fast flash mode during the day. I think that's the most visible for cars in sort of high light situations. And then at night, I'll choose one of the flashes or solid. Just depends on what I'm doing. I like running the flash modes actually around where I live, just because it feels a little bit more like it's getting some people's attention, and you can feel it, during the day and the night. But yeah, we always recommend running during the day. So I run the lights all the time, and then because they just automatically shut off and come back on, I just never think about it. So, with my commuter bike, I use it pretty much every day, and I never think about the lights, and maybe every month or so I think, do I need to charge these? And then I look at them, and sometimes I'll get the 25% thing and I'll say, okay, I'll charge them, but I hardly ever think about turning them on and off.
That's awesome. I definitely cover that in my video. And I'm like, oh yeah, like especially on the fast flash mode, you get like the over 36 hours. That's awesome. So on the side of leaving them in, this was one of my critiques. So when you're riding to, let's say, from your garage to work, and you have a nice place to put it, etc. But if you're doing groceries, parking it downtown for extended periods of time, etc., do you find that you'll be taking them out, or would you leave them in? Because I guess along with your front and back light, if you have those, you would then have to bend over, take the 4 modules out each and every time, then put them back in when you go. So can you kind of walk me through one of those situations?
Yeah, for sure. So as someone who has had front and rear lights removed from my bike and repurposed for someone else's purposes, I was wondering about this myself. And I live in San Francisco. I park the bike everywhere in the city. I have a nice big chain lock that I use, but I leave the lights in. Since they shut off after 30 seconds, I often will hang around till they shut off. And, but if it's local to where I live, I don't even think about that. I think that because the product isn't ubiquitous, I don't think people recognize that the lights are removable. And when they're off, they're not really something that you're going to notice, unless you get really close to a bike. So I think that most people can probably get away not removing them, but it depends on your feelings and your, kind of situation. I have done that in the past where I've just popped them out of the bike, brought them in someplace with me if I was going to be away for hours or something, and then put them back in. It's easy enough to do that. Yes, if you go ride through the mud and then you want to pull them out, it's worth considering that. But yeah, these days I don't pull them out. I don't worry about them. And I don't think that it's that obvious the way that a rear tail light or a headlight is. Someone expects to see that on a bike. And, yes, there's plenty of nefarious people sometimes that might pull those things. So I do pull my tail light if I'm going to somewhere. And it's about as easy as pulling the lights, but I don't bother anymore. Yeah.
For sure. And you're referring to I forget the exact name, the back mount.
Yeah. We've got a mount that the lights can go into to act as a tail light or a front, visibility light. And I have both of those on my bikes, and I'll just pull them out and just put those in my pocket.
And yeah, so I have one as well, and it just pops right out. That's, I think, debatably easier than most tail lights.
Yeah, you don't have to remove the rubber band. I think we were really kind of frustrated and surprised that isn't more common. There are some lights that do that, some other good lights that you can twist off and some things like that. But yeah, we hadn't actually seen one that was done like this. So it was sort of obvious to us that we would use the same attachment mechanism that we're using in the pedals to attach for front and rear, and use the same, color set technology. So then you can set up the rear light where your mount is set for red, and then no matter what light module you put in there, it'll always turn red. Same with the front, which is nice. But yeah, I'm surprised that not more lights are like that, because people tend not to steal a mount off your bike because there's nothing to take there. But the light taking the rubber band off every time, that's actually quite a pain. Even though it's simple, there's those little things that are a big inconvenience, I think. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. For me, I'm more of a utility cyclist. It sounds like you as well, dropping off kids, etc. And you get in a car and you turn it on and go, because it has everything. So with these pedals, it's very similar to having front lights, and okay, not exactly a front light, but you're visible just like in a vehicle. So if you are going to go to a grocery store to pick up some groceries, etc., the least amount of friction possible is the best, where you get on your bike, you go, you lock it, you go in, etc. So, and yeah, in this case, you pop off the end, leave them in the pedals, and that sounds like a pretty good strategy. So actually, that brings me to the cold problem, which Well, I'll ask one question at a time. The batteries, what type of batteries are they?
Yeah, so their lithium-ion batteries are, just the same kind of technology you find in cell phones and all kinds of, small electronic devices. We have a custom battery that we built to fit the light module, kind of exactly. But it's the same technology, made by a high-quality, battery vendor that probably makes a bunch of stuff in other electronics that we use. And, lithium-ion batteries have pretty good cold performance. And you may be very familiar with this. I don't live in a very cold climate, so I don't think about it too much. But yeah, I mean, it's something we considered, and we didn't want people that were living in cold climates to have some significant downside. So what the data suggests is that leaving lights in cold environment for a significant period of time can degrade them, but often it's temporary. And the degradation for even that long-term exposure to cold can be a pretty small amount. So let's say you do some long-term exposure to cold. Oftentimes you'll end up with a few percentages off of the ability to sort of refill to a maximum. Say you were getting 100%, maybe you're down to 97 or 96% over a pretty long period of time. And often, I think the data suggests that the cold effects might be temporary. So as soon as things are back to a room temperature state, you are able to fully, charge back up to almost a full state. So I certainly think that there are people that are living in extreme cold climates where they probably wouldn't feel comfortable leaving their cell phone outside. You may want to think about it the same way. But I actually think they're more durable than it might seem, at first. And so I think, again, everybody has their procedures that they might use. But if you would leave a normal light on your bike, then you shouldn't have any concerns about leaving these on. But if you're like, I don't really leave lights on my bike because I want to make sure I take care of it, great, go ahead and pull them. But people could always experiment and, see if it works for them. I don't think you should expect to see more than 5 to 10% degradation in runtime, even if you're leaving them in the cold, because, they're meant to deal with that stuff. They're not meant to have some issues that crop up or some, normal temperature low limit that's way above what you'd expect.
You can only ride in plus 20 sunny weather. Got it.
I mean, these days, battery technology and, they're just becoming more and more stable. So I think that years ago, some batteries would have quite a bit of trouble with the cold, and it's just not as much of an issue these days, which is nice. So. No,
that's great. And then I guess my natural progression for the questions is, are you able to buy new light modules?
Yeah, so we've got light modules that people can get, and honestly, if anyone does run this cold experiment and they run into problems, we'd love to know. And we have replacement lights for if something does happen to a light, we're always here for it. They're going to last a long time, so we don't expect to replace a ton of them, but we've got it. Like any electronic thing, you make 50,000 of something, and there's always going to be things that crop up, and so we're fully expecting to be able to service stuff for people if they have problems with lights or things like that. So far that hasn't been a big issue for anyone. But ultimately people can buy additional lights if they want spares. But if they have a problem with the light, they should just contact us because we're 100% behind things. And if there's an actual issue that something was caused by exposure to something, then we want to replace it. We want to check it out and find out what happened. So.
Perfect. And actually that leads me to the customer service. And if you could fill me in your own words, what the brief history of Redshift, and if it's based in the US, etc., and where everything is done.
Yeah, so we started Redshift in 2013, and we're based out of Philadelphia. I'm not currently located in Philly anymore, but I was there for a long time, so that's kind of our main spot. We're a small company, there's not too many of us, but we do all of the product assembly for every one of our products in-house. And so what it means is we build stuff in different places. We work in Taiwan, which is where most bike components are made, at least all the high-end stuff. So we have some awesome factories we work with there that make everything you find on all the super high-end race bikes. We bring pieces to our facility in Philly. We have like a workspace there. And then we do some manufacturing on little pieces. We make some parts and then we put everything together. And we do all the quality work there. We package everything and we do all our fulfillment out of that space. So We do keep stock in Europe and in Canada and the UK, Australia, and Japan. Which is these are things we developed over the years, but everything starts in Philadelphia. So we actually export everything from there, and so we touch every product that goes in a box. So we've got all the stuff there. So anyone that needs things, they can contact us, and we've got a group of people in Philly, and for a long time I built the stuff, and now we have specialized group of team members that do that, who are experts at building all the pieces. But yeah, we build all the pedals by hand. We have a bunch of fixtures we've created to make sure everything goes in and fits well, and that's really the main thing at our facility there, in our workspace. And then we do prototyping, and we build new products, and we do our engineering and design, and then store all the stuff that we are getting in and shipping out. So it's a nice cool space in a great part of Philadelphia, and we're lucky to be there and have access to there's a lot of great people in Philly that have really good technical background. So that's been great for us, because we make technical stuff. It's not easy to put our parts together. They're not something that can just be made by some random factory. It takes quite a bit of expertise and know-how. So
no, that's awesome as well. So we're approaching the end here. I'm just trying to go through anything. It was pretty natural back and forth, so I didn't really look at my list too much. You've already mentioned your favorite mode to use, your favorite features. Anything else on the market like this? I don't think there is. Is there? Are there?
It's funny, because there was a product similar to this from like 25 years ago, and I think that it's one of these things where it just suffered from the available technology 25 years ago. And so, it's something that we came up with this idea, and then we found it, and we said, oh, well, someone actually already did something like this. It was much more basic and didn't have the features, certain things, the lights weren't removable, stuff like that. So there are no products that are like this out there. The things that we've combined that make this really unique are the fact that the pedal alone is just a regular solid pedal. And then it has capacity to have the light modules, so they're removable. They can be used in other places, so that's very unique. So we've essentially created this really awesome light that then, combined with the pedals, creates this awesome pedal, light. So that was really how we went about doing it. And we didn't start at the pedal and work out. We created the light to be a good light, something you would use, all over. And then we said, yeah, we're going to make the same integration into the pedals. And I think that's what does make it unique. And then some of the features, like we talked about with the Pro pedals, we went one step further to make them, sort of configurable and transformable. And that's not something you even find with regular pedals. So we're, combining some pretty unique ideas together, and we think that it's a great package. And now we feel really good, because with the release of the Pro pedals, we have people covered. So we got a lot of requests, can we have clipless, can you do this with traction? And so now we feel like with all this transformable, we've got everybody covered. Pretty much any kind of bike they want to ride, they can get access to this, and they can increase their safety. And I think that's really what it comes down to is, like you said, there aren't many products, that even attempt to do this kind of thing. There isn't anything that does what we're doing. There are lots of products that try to work on safety, and we like to think that we're part of that group now, where combining things together is what makes you safe on the bike. How many lights can you put on there, so that not only you can see, but you can be seen. And there's a lot of great places to put lights and to put reflective materials, and I think that the pedals they just really enhance that for someone. And so ultimately, that's why we wanted to push this product out to people, because we think that it can really make people safer. And these days, more than ever, I feel like we're hearing about lots of incidents happening, and it's just everything you can do to be more seen is going to make it so that people just don't get that close to you.
I agree with everything you said there, and really the incidents being in the news, I guess it's good that they're in the news, not good that they're happening. So more people are aware of them, but if you can be seen and not think about it either, you don't have to put on a vest, you don't have to put on high-vis things, you don't have to put on an extra light, especially for those just around the neighborhood jaunts. It's like, hey, I'm just gonna head out, I don't need to do anything, they're motion activated, done.
And I think you're really hitting at what we thought was a pretty big issue, is removing any barriers to safety, I think is really important. And so, yeah, having lights in your pedals that just sit there and you don't think about them, maybe you charge them once a month or once every 2 months. I think we feel that is really great. And maybe even when we started this, we didn't realize that the convenience elements that we built in as we were designing the product, we built it as we wanted to use them. And it's funny because, I think all of us are totally aware that safety is important. And like you said, there's all these things that we could be doing and people aren't doing those things. So if we can make it easy and we can make it really convenient, then you will have this safety enhancement, and then that you're keeping yourself safe. I think that there's many things we all accept that you need to do. If it's dark outside, you have to put a light on so you can see. But I think people, probably have not done, as much as they could because it can be inconvenient. So I think if we can do something that is very natural that you don't think about and it's just now there, then I think that's great. And I will say that, I've heard this from many people and I experienced the same thing. I really feel like when I ride with the pedals, I get a wider berth from cars. I feel like there's more of an awareness, and it's kind of interesting because it leads to confidence. So riding and being nervous can cause you to not ride as much anymore. And so riding and feeling comfortable, it can give you back, some of that feeling of like, this is why I ride a bike. And I think that's something that is missing for a lot of people. And there's an intimidation factor to riding around cars. And if we can make that a little bit better for someone, then that's great because it puts more people on bikes. And the more people on bikes, the more everyone will be safe. So it's almost like we've got to get over a hump where make people as safe as they can be now, and then the density of people riding will enhance safety even more than anything we could ever do to the person or the bike. Just bunches of bikes on the road is going to make everybody safe. So
I was going to get on that or jump right on that because really the critical mass, at a certain point, there are enough bikes that it's even more safe than when there weren't.
And it'll force infrastructure, it'll force, drivers to become aware, more accepting, and everybody knows that everyone knows that rides a bike that ultimately, we're doing a lot of really positive things by riding a bike for everyone. And I think, as that increases, it will lead to greater and greater, benefits. So we're getting over that hump, right? And so I think if we can be part of trying to get over that hump of, get not only, there's the access, but the idea of feeling comfortable and being able to go out there and do the things you want to do with a bike in your town, in your neighborhood, in your city, wherever it is. I think that's a really positive thing. And we feel good about, being in this space. I mean, we design products that we want to use, and safety's been a thing that's been on our mind for a long time. And so this is the first thing that we're doing here, but it's not going to be the last thing we're doing.
Well, that's awesome. I think you've answered a lot of my questions. I don't know if, are there any weaknesses with the pedal?
No, I don't think there are any weaknesses. I think like every product out there, there are things that that don't match up to, everybody's expectations with certain things. But I think that's always that thing that happens where you're looking for something that meets your needs. How many boxes does it check for you? Is it the right thing for you? So I think ultimately the pedals are heavier than other pedals, and the reason is they have lights in them. So they have an extra thing that you put somewhere else normally on your bike. They're in there, and so that weight is an easy trade-off to make in your mind, right? Weight for safety, and when we talk about weight, we're talking about very minimal amounts of weight. I think cyclists tend to inflate the value of weight a lot, and especially when it comes to riding, in the city, going and getting groceries, bringing people from point A to point B, that kind of thing just isn't really that critical. So I think it's an easy trade-off for people to understand. But when they get the pedal, they're going to say, "Oh, this is heavier than my existing pedal," and the answer is, yeah, of course, it's got lights in it, so that it is heavier, and it's meant to last. A lot of pedals you get on, if you buy a bike, hybrid bike or an e-bike or something, you're getting very subpar pedals on those bikes. These pedals are very inexpensive. They're direct from factory type of stuff. And a lot of people upgrade them anyway. So, this is also an opportunity to upgrade pedals if you haven't done that to something that's a lot more rugged. Those other pedals, they just won't end up lasting, not only the internals, but externally. I have smashed my pedals a number of times. The lights have not been damaged, some scratches on them, but that's what happens when you're riding around the city. And they're meant to hold up really well. They're not meant to break down like that. And so they're sturdy, and that's reflected in how they're built. So
awesome. That was a a great interview. I think that answered so many questions. I might need to now rewrite a few bits of my script and re-record before tomorrow. But yeah, no, that was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and stop my thing here and just make sure that it worked.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for taking the time as well. I know you're kind of busy file naming right now, but yeah, it's really good to get inside everyone's brain. Maybe I should have done this way at the top and just done the interview, and then going into this while I'm writing, I can think of the things that you were saying. But this also works the day before it's due. But
no, I mean, I appreciate being able to chat through this stuff. It's nice to I don't talk as formally about things, so it's kind of nice to codify different things. And it's good, some of the questions you're asking. And I do think that there's always two aspects to this, right? The ArcLight pedals, they're a safety device. The Pro pedals are a version that's really designed for people that want performance pedals to get the safety device. And I think there were plenty of people, we got all this feedback from people, and it was useful. It was, oh, these are awesome, I'd really like to run these, but they don't have clipless, or the way I ride, I need this. And we thought, yeah, of course, let's do this. And at the same time, let's make it at the level of the riders we're getting this feedback from, because a lot of these riders are riding clipless on the road, or so matching more that level of performance need versus, say, the city pedals, which the real need is the ruggedness, the safety aspect, the compatibility, the being nice to your shins, so it's a bit of a different brief for the product. But now we feel really good about having kind of this option for everyone, and that's really the thing. And I hope that people look at this and say, you know what, the city pedals are the right ones for me, because that's actually what I want out of them, versus, oh, I'm gonna this is the one I need to get. No, I mean, the city one is still going to be right for the vast majority of people, honestly, because the grip is great on those, and they also, when you bump into them, it doesn't cause excruciating pain the way that you can get with some of this other stuff. People that want traction pins and things, great, they can have them, and they know to be careful. But I think the city pedals are nice from the standpoint that they probably fit the bill for a huge portion of people riding e-bikes, doing commuting, riding in the city, riding in their town, and then it's that extra need that comes into play with the other pedals.
And so the city, actually, I know we already stopped recording, but maybe I can pull from this, or whatever, just for my own knowledge, are the city and Pro light modules interchangeable?
Yeah, they're exactly the same. So we've got plenty of people, we did this VIP. We always offer our products to our existing customers ahead of time, so that if we have, minimal inventory or something, they get the first crack at it. So it's sort of like, if you're part of our list, you get to know about things before anyone else. And we've had a bunch of people that own the existing ArcLights, and they're like, sweet, and they just buy the pedals and use the same lights. So we sell the pedals without lights as well. And that's also just because we've had a bunch of people that said, oh, I've got more than one bike, I don't need more than one set of lights. So yeah, so the lights are the same, and that we're going to continue to make lights that are compatible with these. And we have new versions of lights that we're working on, some simpler, some more complicated and with more features. And those will all be, we're looking at using the same form factor as much as we possibly can, so that there's backwards compatibility. There's nothing worse than coming out with a new feature and then not working with something. So we want to be able to do that. So that's the focus of that stuff.
Awesome. I appreciate that, because yes, a lot of products suddenly, oh, wow, you have to buy a new thing. And it's not even I have to buy a new thing. What do I do with the old thing now? So
no, we don't want that to be the case. And I think that, we have some versions of upgraded, modules where someone might displace their old ones, but keeping almost everything you can. And then the old modules are still great, right? So there's nothing wrong with them. And it's funny, I use them all around the house. I actually they're really, really bright indoors. I don't know if you've turned them on indoors, but people always ask us, they say, how bright are these? And it's like, well, turn it on indoors and you'll find out how bright it is. Like, shouldn't be looking at it when it's indoors. But yeah, I use them all around the house. And it's funny because I haven't made an attachment yet to like attach it somewhere, but I really want to. So I put it in my mouth, which is kind of weird, but That's how I. So I'm constantly looking in places, and there's light in my mouth. But
that's definitely how, like, I mean, tradespeople definitely hold the flashlights in their mouths. So same thing, but yeah, a head strap with the little magnetic thing.
Yeah, well, we made one, but it was an old version of the attachment, so the lights don't fit in it because it was like a prototype. So I need to go I just need to go print myself one and just start using it and every time I do it, I'm like, I should go print one, and then I forget, and then don't make it. No, I really appreciate the opportunity to chat, and looking forward to seeing what you've got there. And yeah, I mean, keep us posted if you're interested in trying other stuff, or I always know that it's great to get to know folks in your position, because oftentimes, we'll send something to someone that's like, oh, my friend does this thing, like he would love to check it out. So if you've got people in your circle that are interested in looking or exploring things, point them our way. I'm always happy to do that. We really love getting feedback from people that test products and know products. It is the kind of thing that informs our development. So that's always like the secondary benefit that we get from sending stuff to people to know. Customers are great. They tell you what they think, but you can get the real impressions from someone like the cold. This is a really important thing for you. And it's great to hear that, because I don't live where it's cold. And even in Philly, it doesn't get that cold, right? It's not cold like in Northern Canada. So I think this is really useful stuff. We've had a few people in Norway, actually, that we have a guy in Sweden who he has no issues with any of our products. We had a guy in Norway, though, who he kept icing up one of our products. And it was really interesting, because it was like, we never experienced it before. He was putting it in a garage. And so it was like the whole bike was getting wet, and then he was going outside, and everything would freeze right away. So it was like super interesting, situation. So and that's like the kind of thing we can experience. He's like in way northern Norway, and it was like, oh, that was really interesting to know.
So one of his tools is a pickaxe, and
yeah. Well, we were talking about what do you need to do to actually prevent the thing from freezing, because it wasn't just our stuff too. He was having problems with other things, and it was like he thought he was doing the right thing by coming inside, and actually was sort of like, oh, like maybe that isn't what you should be doing. So it's kind of a funny thing to be working with him. But I think he resolved it, and it stopped being an issue for him somehow. I don't know if he was like drying stuff off maybe or what, but yeah, it's really great to hear back from folks. And I always, the feedback is always great, because it informs what to do next, and what might be missing, what are the compromises with something. So
no, that's awesome to hear that you encourage the feedback from both customers and reviewers, I guess.
I mean, that's how we make stuff. I mean, I think we like to think about ourselves as a bit of a different brand. I think we're one of the brands that goes after, I don't know if it's ignored things, but like, I think the cycling industry, e-bikes are a little bit better about this, but the cycling industry in general is very like race focused and sort of like chasing top down stuff. And I think that that's not how other industries work. Like even outdoor space industries don't always work like that. So I think ultimately, that's been something that's been going on for a long time. And so you ignore things. You make stiff bikes that are super fast, that require athleticism that's above almost all of us. And then you're surprised when people are uncomfortable. So, I think like we like to look at it from what's really practical, and things are changing. I think there's much more of an embracing of what do regular people want to ride, and how do they have fun, and what is how do you mix in that sort of aspirational performance with something that's actually more fit to someone. And like I said, e-bikes do that better. They're unabashedly what they are, right? And they come in all different shapes and sizes. And I think that's kind of a nice thing, because it's upending a little bit of that like race focused culture within the industry. And I think people are maybe allowed to design in a different way. It doesn't have to meet the standards of a Tour Pro all of a sudden. And I think we've never felt with the need to match that. We've had pros that have asked us to ride our stuff, and that's fine, but we never designed it for pros to start with. So our pro category is not for pros. It's just the performance level. So I think that we've always kind of gone after things a little bit differently than other brands, and we've done it based on feedback that we've heard and stuff. So we started competing in triathlon, and those were our first products, and we developed them based on what we saw at races and what we were doing. And it was, we were age group triathletes right in the midst of things. We were completely ignoring the pros. They had nothing to do with what we were interested in. So I think that that's not a totally unique approach, but there's not that many brands that are doing that.
Now I have a whole different, I guess, vision. When I go back to your site, I'll click through the categories. I'll be like, oh, this makes so much more sense now. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time yet again.
Thank you.
This was super beneficial, more than I thought. I went through I think I asked way more than 13 questions, so thank you for dealing with that.
No problem. My pleasure. And so we talked about my weather. What is your current state of weather right now?
So it was wonky. December, we got like a nice white Christmas. And then it proceeded to melt for most of January. And so it was kind of very mild. And then February, it started to be winter again. And then March, at the beginning, it was like, hey, also just, all of the winter that we missed, have it all now. And we're like, okay. So it snowed and everything. And then it would like go to I think it's +8 today. And yet at night, it's like -10. So the temperature swings are bonkers.
Wow, that is pretty dramatic. Yeah. When do you normally get of spring starting?
Spring, so my parents would come up with a snow date when we lived in Ottawa, and we're over in, it's funny because we're in London, Ontario, which is near Toronto, but like if you check a map, we're basically in the US. Like we're drooping down almost like Florida droops down. And like it used to be like April 10th was no snow day for sure, like across like the averaging, but sometimes it's the end of March is the general gist. But it's still very like, there's only 20 days per year. I know like you guys don't get snow or like really cold weather, but like a lot of people in the comments of my videos, etc., they're like, oh, well, you're building bike lanes and infrastructure for no one. Like you can't bike in the winter for 6 months a year. I'm like, I don't think do you live in Canada? Because there's only like 20 days per year where it's like, no, I'm driving today. Or something else where it's like, oh,
yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing with East Coast US. I think that sometimes people like in California, like me, might assume, and I lived in the East Coast, so I don't make this assumption, but you think it's like, oh, there's snow everywhere all the time. It's like, well, it gets plowed pretty quick. So it's not there like a day later. And then it's not like it snows every day. So you can still, like, cars get around, bikes can get around, and like a little slushy sometimes, but like, yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's funny because I feel like the winter's going to go on a long time this year, just because we get winter rains, I think, which is the same snows that make their way up to, northern U.S. and into Canada as well. So it'd be really interesting. It just continues to snow and snow and snow. So
yeah, it's almost like the seasons have changed because like, yeah, that one December snow, but before that there was nothing, and then the whole of January was like no snow, and then finally now it's winter, and we're like, wait, what? I forget when the spring hit. Is spring? Yeah, like spring. The actual day I think was either this week or last week or coming up.
That's right. Yeah, no, I think it's the 21st, right? Or the 20th is the?
Yeah, I guess maybe today. I don't know.
Yeah, it's either today or tomorrow is the what are they the spring equinox? Is that what it is?
But yeah, that is how it is up here. It's weird. Well, thank you very much again.
Thanks, Ben.
Have a great one.
Really appreciate it. Look forward to catching up soon.
Yes, for sure. Bye.
Bye.